I met a gypsy.
So that's a good segue then into your start into racing, because I've heard some funny stories of like just how little of a clue that your old boy had. And I mean, it's such a difference. Like I grew up with, there was always a bike in the shed. So some of my earliest memories are of bikes and my dad on bikes and all that sort of stuff. So like, how did you get into racing? And I mean, it's obviously like a big part of your story in general, I guess, is, just growing up with a dad that knew all essentially about bikes, and then you end up being one of the best dudes in the world, one of the best all-time British motorcycle riders. It's a pretty wild beginning.
Yeah, no, it's different. It was just my dad done a little bit of go-karting, and then just who knew nothing about, like, didn't even know it was a sport sort of thing. So then he just got two cheap bikes. I'm not sure where they come from, but I have an older brother, Billy, as well. So he's 4 years older than me. So we both got bikes. I'm not sure if it's Christmas or around Christmas time. Had a little bit of land. Not even not proper motocross bikes. Like I had I think it was like a Malaguti. So I guess it was a proper motocross bike, but like a 50 Malaguti. I'm not sure what my brother had. I think it was the bigger 50 Malaguti. He would have been 9 and I was 5. 9 and 5. So we just rode around the garden. We had a little bit of land, like not a huge garden, but we rode around doing figure of eights till we crashed into each other, and then we realised like, fuck, a figure of eight's not the one for motocross. And then we just went through. We just raced as kids, local races. We thought, all right, we loaded up in this van. He was a builder, still is a builder. So we just chucked the bikes in the back of the in like a little sprinter thing. Went to the track, and then we raced. Like I just used to race. Once we got the bug, we just went as a family. Every weekend we'd sort of find somewhere to race locally. And which that sort of side of it's gone now. People don't race as much. They sort of practice, but we just raced. Ride in the garden, and then just become quite good, quite quick. But we still had no idea. Like I had no idea. I never watched races on TV. My dad had never been to an actual like professional race, I'd never been to a world championship before I raced a world championship.
Wow.
The only race we'd ever gone to was Zolder MX of Nations, that I spoke about earlier. But until then, the first world championship race I went to, I raced. So it was one of those. It happened really quick. It never was one of the things like my dad never said to me like, you can do this like professionally, or we never knew it was a thing to do as a profession. But we just went through the youth ranks. My bikes were never the best because he wasn't really into bikes. He was a builder. We'd be building all week, and then we'd chuck the bike in the van and off we go. Sometimes, like I remember we had this auto that was fucked. Like this thing was just, no one had ever seen it. We got it from a local bloke down the road. Like it was this 50cc, but it was like a rocket ship, and then we turned up to this 50cc national, which was like the biggest kids race in the UK at the time. And everyone was like laughing at this bike that we had because no one had one. Like it was just this thing. It was called a Riviera. Like no one had them. And then I just smoked everyone, like out the blue, just coming. And everyone else was like looking at it and had it stripped and stuff in the evening to see like why this fucking thing was a rocket ship. But it would just fall to pieces. I remember coming up one race and the whole like headset just come loose. Like I'd get a tank stepper. I used to end up in the ambulance, and then Dad would never tighten up the headset on it. Like someone would go like, "Oh, he hasn't got the headset bolt in," and Dad would be like, "No, don't. That's not going to come off. Like he's got the clamps. Like you don't need the top headset bolt." There were times when I was on a start line at the schoolboy nationals, and this was when I was on a 125 already, and he's pumping my tire up on the start line. Like I've got a slow flat, and he's there with a foot pump, like 15 boards up. He's still pumping it up. 5 board goes up, like he pops the thing off, and he runs out the way, and he's like, it's been a slow flat for a couple of months. Like it's still good, it's still fine. Like you just pump it up before the race. So I think that's when I went to adults and I got on a pro team. I had such a big jump because I used to win everything still as a kid, but it was close. Like I had good races with people. And then when I got in a professional, sort of the kids that I was racing, I sort of made that step up, whereas they didn't make that step up. And then we had a bit of guidance because Dad, obviously, we went everywhere as a kid. We still went to places. He drove me everywhere. He still spent like money on the sport because obviously you can't.
Yeah, you
It
can't
wasn't
get
that
out
he
of it for
didn't.
free.
Nah, he didn't like. It wasn't that we had no money. Like Dad had a good business, worked hard. Like we had money to spend on bikes, but we just didn't know what we were spending it on.
Yeah.
And he would just buy anything like that. Oh, that's faster for the bike. Like we'll stick that on and it'd just blow up. And then he'd get an engine tuned by someone and then forget to put the air filter in. It would just fucking blow it to smithereens in practice. Like
What
there's
a
so many
legend.
stories. Yeah, he was good. But no, he wouldn't care. Like engine would be tuned, no air filter in. And like, I remember one race I've gone round and he's pulled me in practice like I pulled in qualifying like you do, and he's like, how's the bike? I'm like, fuck, bike's good. And then I was like, loud though, and he's like, yeah. He's like, nah, it's good. Then I go up the next hill, like a couple of laps later, and it just blows up. He's like, fucking bike, I've just had this thing tuned. And then he goes back to the pits, takes the seat off, there's no filter in, like it's just full of sand. But there's countless stories like that. But I think it made me like the rider I was, because I I never beat everyone by a long way as a kid. We always raced till the end. Like I won the championships, but it was always close. And then when I went to the pros, like I said before, it made quite a big step quite quick. And then had a bit more guidance in what we should be doing. And then I progressed quite quickly in the World Championship. Like we went from 1 year racing kids stuff to then the next year I was already in racing a World Championship round. It was mad, really, how quickly time went.
Yeah, there must have been some like crazy benefits to growing up like that, because you see so many kids that the fun's gone because they've just got this dickhead dad that is doing it more for themselves than for the kid, and it just sort of like ruins all the fun. And but then on the other side, it probably was a detriment in other sort of areas, but like you said, it ends up making you who you are. But I mean, yeah, was there like positives that were massive and then negatives?
It was all positive. Like, I would never have changed a thing. Like, it was all positive. He never once said one thing that I had a bad race. Like, can't remember one time ever shouting at me or raising his voice about our result. Like, I used to just pin it every race. I used to wait until he got back from work because we had a little bit of land in the garden, and my mum wouldn't let me ride the bike till Dad was home.
Yeah.
So I'd sit there in my gear. I'd get back from school. I'd be sat in my gear waiting. As soon as he drove up the drive, I'd be like, fire the bike up, and I'd be straight up the track, and he'd get out his car and come and watch me in the garden. So there was no my bike wasn't the best, but fuck, there was no negatives really. Like, I remember one British Championship, the last one where I got a bit older, we was on 85s. My bike was like breaking that much that my friend lent me his bike. He gave me his son's bike, and he was like, "You're not going to win it. Like, if you race your bike, like, it's fucked, mate." Like, so he gave me his bike, and then I raced his bike. His name's Dave Matthews. They give me his bike to then finish the British Championship, and then I won all the races on his bike, and then won the British Championship. But just one of those things that were just different to how other people done it. But I think in the long run it made me a good rider. And then I was sort of I made like a huge jump when I went to the professional ranks, and I had like a bit of a team behind me, a bit more guidance. So nothing but all good stuff really.
Man, that sounds like the dream almost, eh? Like that, you would have seen it. Like, I'm sure you would have seen kids that their dads were just absolute fuckwits, and like you've just got your old boys just sort of just doing it just purely for fun, which is so rare, man.
Yeah, no, I see it. It's every day now. It's just constant, the dads. But you're never going to change that. Like, it's just one of those things that you can't change. People, even some of the dads are like, they know how they are, but they just can't change it, But no, I was fortunate that was never the case with what I do, and just lucky in that case, really.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.